Hey guys, so my thing today is um, what is the best way to deal with making mistakes or being wrong? Um, so let's say you have a specific, no one's perfect, right? And especially the higher up the food chain you go, the higher the stakes are. But especially when the stakes are high for organization, company, there's a lot on the line, leading a team, and it can really just affect people's confidence in you as well as having like a major effect on the progress of the organization. I guess I'm trying to like hype it as well now a little bit, but yeah, the long and short of it is we all make mistakes, but what is the best way to deal with it once you've made that mistake, and the potential impacts that that mistake can have? So again, to take it to the bottom, it can be in some cases where the stakes are very high, when these things happen, people lose confidence in you, or kind of lose confidence in you, look at you a different way, side-eye glances, all of that kind of stuff. um yeah, I don't know, what are some thoughts that you guys have?
If you're not careful, you could also lose confidence in yourself because your
Mm.
mistakes may often be because they're higher profile, more public, and have bigger consequences. You have to be brave enough to not let it carry into the next decision you've got to make. So that can be something. And you've also got those people who are waiting for the people on the top to make a mistake so they can, act like a poison and be like, see, they don't know what they're doing, and, affect everybody. So it can really get around and become quite cancerous to a company if there's like high profile mistakes made and you don't have that trust with your team. So yeah, you're right, it can be quite bad.
I think sometimes with these situations, it just feels like you've made this mistake, and it almost feels like you can't come back from it.
Yeah.
Or like if this thing goes wrong, like like the effects of it are going to be irreversible. And sometimes, yeah, I guess you're right, Deola. Sometimes it's psychological as well. um yeah, I don't know, I just feel like it can be, I don't know, I guess it depends on the scenario as well. It can be quite severe, I think.
Yeah,
Of course,
I can reveal two. Well, I reveal one actually. One I can't. Of my biggest work mistakes that I've ever made, and it haunts me even to this day. Sometimes I think about it. I was working with Charles actually. I won't say the name of the place, but we worked together, and I was responsible for the exams, and I registered half of the school on the wrong award, and so the results were going to be given over 2 years rather than one.
I
And so
remember.
these people were expecting to pass out and leave with their results in the summer, but no, they'd have to be pulled back the next year to the second part. And as I found out, it was absolutely mortifying.
Yeah,
Absolutely mortifying.
yeah.
I can't describe how gutting it was. And to be fair, if I did not have the support of the leadership for the other good things I was doing, and I was doing quite a lot, I don't know how I would have recovered from it. Like I would have eventually, but I think if I never had the support of the people around me, that would have been massive for me professionally in terms of how I trusted myself going forward. As it was, I was given a lot of support by the person in charge at the time, which was fortunate because a year later that relationship changed, and so I wouldn't have had that support. But yeah, that kind of mistake can be devastating. And also, I don't think the other thing that person didn't do was, as far as I know, share it with everybody. And what that would have done to my position, it might have made it untenable.
So it was fixed.
It wasn't fixed. It just was carried on. We moved on. We offered opportunities to the people it impacted to do stuff, but it never really made it around the staff rooms, as far as I was aware. And so that would have had a massive impact on my ability to stay in the job, really.
Yeah, for the record, I don't think I agree with that stance. I don't think it was. If that helps you sleep at night, I only know because you told me.
Yeah. So,
but that's it. That's the other thing. It's that reputational damage to you, but also the company you're working for could. Like, look at some of the big data breaches that there have been.
Yes.
Like after that, you've had to deal. That company's like tainted with that forever, even if they were the best after. It's just something people remember.
Well, that's why we see people in big companies when they have those things that happen, whether it's personal or professional stuff, and they have to leave. And they say, whose head's going to fall? We see it in the government. You know, when you're traveling to go see castles when it's supposed to be locked down, and it's like somebody, and not only that, look what's happened to the government. It's he leaves and then comes back a few months later to just attack everybody. And so it just compounds the mistake, and it just sets an atmosphere because nobody wants to be the fall guy. And so it just creates an atmosphere where people are ready to point fingers, and it can be really, really, really like dog eat dog way.
Actually, that's right, because sometimes we see it. It's guys, just it's okay if you tell me you made a mistake, and we can be like that. But you see people just not. It's like Teflon. They will not go near that, and no one's admitting to it. And you're like, it's all right. If I knew, then I'll just be able to fix it. But that culture, that blame culture, is huge after that.
Yeah,
definitely.
I do that.
I think that almost comes in twofolds, where you kind of panic and don't want anyone to find out about a mistake, and then you know, you kind of go into extremes to try and cover it up. But also the other thing of, you know, this thing is out and is public knowledge, and almost kind of going, no, this is not a thing I've done. This is not, and like failing to take accountability for it. Because I don't know, it's just that that perception of making a mistake is, you know, it's just so bad. Yeah. All right. So what's the turnaround then? What's the best way to deal with the mistake? Let's say for I think we discussed quite a few things. So hypothetically speaking, you have made the mistake. The stakes were high. It is public knowledge. People know you messed up, and it had a massive effect. What is the best way to deal with that?
I think you have to break down the issue into the different people it impacts. So there's how it impacts you. I personally, I own my mistakes. I wear them. They bother me and they stress me out, and I'll share them. And people will either support me or I'll support myself eventually into overcoming that mistake. And I think that's inbuilt resilience of expecting that in order to do good things, you have to take shots. And if you take shots, you're going to miss shots. That whole Michael Jordan thing that we've often heard. Then you've got to think about the people around you. How do you keep their confidence? How do you keep people with you after they've seen you publicly make mistakes? And I'll leave that one maybe for one of you two to answer. And then the third thing is, how do you rectify it with the people who it's impacted? And I think that's about holding your hands up, being honest, saying what the situation is, and coming to them with options. Don't just come to people with mistakes. That's when I'm on the other side of the mistake. I hate it when it's, well, we've broken that. I want to know what you can do to fix it and give me an option to say, okay, if you do that, I'm happy. I'm not happy, but I'm happy if you do that. So I feel like when it comes to dealing with the person made a mistake for, go to them, put your hands up, say I made a mistake, acknowledge it, here's your options, deal with your own personal stuff. The one in the middle is the one I didn't answer. It's how do you keep the trust of the people around you?
Not to drag it back down, but I guess my thing is there are some scenarios, situations where people are beyond that, where they're just like, okay, this thing for us, me, is, you know, we can't go back from this point. You know, this is done now. And I don't know, almost that looking, it depends on the context and the situation, obviously. Looking past the fact that humans can make mistakes, to just say that, you know what, I need to just completely be shot of you in this situation.
Are you talking about there somebody else making a mistake and you managing that, or you and your own mistake?
I'm saying no, I'm saying when you've made a mistake, that can be someone else's perspective about the mistake that you have made.
Yeah.
Well, we're assuming that we're talking about mistakes from a leadership position, aren't we?
Yeah.
So that person would have to leave your leadership if they're
no. So I mean, so obviously you've one of the things you touched on was stakeholders, right?
Yeah.
An external stakeholder.
Yeah.
So let's say that's an external stakeholder's position. I mean, how do you approach that?
That's it. It's gone, isn't it? Like sometimes your mistakes are going to cost you. I think that's what risk taking is about, and resilience is about. It's understanding I'm going to make a decision here that can gain us new custom, if we just use that kind of stakeholder, or lose us custom. And you've got to be able to believe in yourself to say that that's what it's about. That's what business is about. It's about trying to take the risk, understand there's a reward, but also understanding that it can go wrong. And sometimes you'll be able to rectify it. Sometimes you won't.
Yeah. So I guess in that context, it's about then it's not even about, because we've spoken about people's perceptions, so the external thing, but also internally, how you almost treat yourself. So on that one where they've kind of written it off, then it's more just about how you internally deal with that.
And again, not to say it again, but I think that's about internal resilience. The one which I think is probably the hardest when you've made the mistake is to maintain the trust of the people working with you. And they might have to work with you because that's their job, but how do you keep their trust? That's the one which I think is potentially the trickiest, because customers, you can offer different solutions.
Yeah, it's the same as with staff, I suppose. They are, in some ways, you treat them in a similar way to your customer, but it's about sincerity and getting ahead of the mistake that you've made, which is what you said before, is go in with a solution to say, I've done this, or this has happened, this is what I think can fix it. Does that suit everybody? What's everyone else's opinions about how this could potentially backfire if we don't follow this route or do follow this route? And it's getting them on board with it. Because if you're a team and you've got that culture already set, so I think part of this is what is the culture before the mistake has happened. If Deola came to me and said, I've made a mistake, I'd go, right, let's fix it. And then maybe after that you have a conversation of how do we make sure that doesn't happen again. I'm sure between us we've had that. I've done stuff where I'm like, I didn't do that correctly, and we move on and we go, actually, we're not going to do that next time. So it's that sincerity of, and holding your hands up, getting in front of it is probably the best thing for the business as well as the relationships around you. But a lot of that culture has to start way before a mistake happens.
I agree, because it is much easier to support someone who's made a mistake, who owns their mistakes. It's frustrating to have to deal with someone who's pointing the finger when you notice them.
And then you're wasting time not fixing it.
There you go. You almost want them to notice their mistake rather than trying to help them. Whereas if I come forward, I've done it recently, I don't tell the world how many mistakes I make, but there was one more recently where I had gone to Jankee and others and said, I've made a mistake, this person's unhappy. And as I've spoken about it, it's like, well, that's not a big deal, actually. Just do this, just do that, just do that. And you get the support, and you still own it, because I think it's important to learn from your mistakes. And I feel like, especially as a leader, you should feel some remorse about your mistake. You shouldn't be like, I make mistakes. But if you're open about it, then you allow people the chance to put it into the proper context, and then hopefully try and move you forward.
Yeah, actually, I think that's a really good point about finding that middle balance between how you feel. So not getting to the bottom of it where you feel like that moment where it's happened, and you kind of, everyone has this where you kind of just have that
sinking heart feeling.
Oh my gosh, this is like, this is major. To the other end where you're like, do you know what I mean? And finding the right kind of middle ground so that you learn from your mistakes and move forward. Right, guys, I need one radical, one rational. How do I move on?
Well, how you move on? Well, to be radical about it, it's like you call the shots, don't you? And it's letting people know that you call the shots, and maybe even ask them what decisions they've made lately that had big results. And if anybody wants to put up their chips, then they can talk to you. But if they don't have the chips for it, then they should just wait on your next decision, because they need you to make a good mistake or a good decision to help them out. So,
bragging rights. Past the first stone. I like that.
Brilliant, bragging rights.
Like, you all live in glass houses.
That's a good one. The sensible one, I suppose, then is own it, get in front of it. I suppose that honesty thing is call it out as well, and let people know that they can't hide from it. So that's if you're managing someone else's mistake, but your own mistake, get in front of it, own it, go in with solutions, and then assess the damage as well. So it might not be as big as you think it is, or you've made it out in your head, or it could be bigger than what you thought it is. So go forward and do that strategizing as well, which is actually, these are the ramifications of what's happened. It could take 5 years to come out of this, or whatever it is. And then try and cover every angle. PR manage it.
Just to add to just that with Jankee, it's maybe let your team know, or at least the people who know, what your intentions were, and that might help soften the blow. That you actually were trying to go for something, and unfortunately it didn't work out.
Yeah, it's that honesty, isn't it? I think people can see it and see when it's true, as in when it's actually meant. Sincerity, rather.
Appreciate that, guys. Loads of helpful tidbits in there, and I will record them for all the times when I make mistakes to come. So for those, guys, take care.
Bye.